because of his role in allowing the people of God to return to Jerusalem and to Judea. And so God uses foreign rulers for Israel's sake. And it begins at the very beginning of Ezra, and in the very first chapter, where you have where it quotes Cyrus's edict, to send the people of God back home. It says, in chapter 1, verse 2, "Thus says King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kings of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem and Judah. Any of those among you who are of his people, may their God be with them, are now permitted to go up to Jerusalem and Judah and rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. And let all survivors in whatever place they reside be assisted by the people of their place with silver and gold, with goods and with animals, besides freewill offerings for the house of God in Jerusalem." And here we have also an evocation of, this is in a sense the new Exodus. This is the return of God's people. Just as the people kind of left the land of slavery to return to the land promised to Abraham, so now the people of God, the Jewish people, are leaving the land of their exile to go back into the land that God promised them. And just as, if you remember from the account of the Exodus, is called the spoiling of the Egyptians, whereas the Israelites are leaving and the Egyptians was like, "Here, take this, go, go." It's like they're giving their gold and silver. It's like, if you leave faster, there'll be more in it for you. It's kind of like a cabbie in the city. It's like, you start throwing money at them. It's like, just go faster. And so the Egyptians are kind of throwing their gold and silver at the Israelites as they're leaving. It's like, just get going. We just want you to leave us. And here it's much more of a benign setting in which Cyrus, in a sense, commends his people or the Israelite cause to his people, kind of asking for donations and giving his permission for this people group to go back to Jerusalem. So there's some evocation here of an earlier wandering, an earlier journey, an earlier leaving from the place of slavery and suffering. And we have to remember, of course, the story of, that there was a lot of suffering in there, and that, eventually we'll get to Daniel, so we're not reading this in order, but, you have the books of Daniel and Esther where they describe some of the difficulties that the Jewish people had in their exile, the vulnerability